Hey friends, and welcome back. If you're new here, my name is Morgan, and there are no surprises here. We are back in the kitchen again. Today we are making canned salsa. So Sam and I love salsa. We eat a lot of tacos, burritos, nachos, chips and salsa for a snack. And so this is something we haven't had for quite a while, and we've definitely been missing it. So today I'm going to be making us some red salsa. And it really couldn't be any easier. I'm going to use this book yet again, and they have a salsa page, and I'm just going to be following the tomato jalapeno salsa. This is literally the same recipe that we eat fresh all year round. There are a few different seasonings that we like to add in, which I will add into today's salsa, but I'm super excited for it. This is something that we absolutely love, and we didn't really get that many tomatoes this year. We had an unexpected frost, which kind of cut all of our tomatoes very short. So unfortunately we lost a ton of tomatoes, which was a huge bummer, but I am thankful for what we were able to get. So I'm going to go ahead and get around to making this salsa. If you are interested in other canning videos, I definitely recommend you checking out some of the other videos. I will link some above, and subscribing so you don't miss any other canned videos. But without further ado, let's get to making this red salsa. All right, friends, so as you can see, my tomatoes were previously frozen. What I do is when I pull them in from the garden, I just core them and then put them into a freezer bag. So I need to see how many pounds of tomatoes we have so that I know how many batches we are making. So what I have here is just a stock pot and a scale underneath. So I'm going to put the stock pot on, zero out the scale. Perfect. And then I'm going to load tomatoes into the food processor. I'm doing this rather than dicing them. I don't really love super chunky salsa. I like mine to be more of a sauce, so a little bit smoother. And I do have a slotted spoon just because these were previously frozen. There's a lot of extra water, so we're just gonna use a slotted spoon and then leave the tomato juice in there. If you were making a Spanish rice or something like that, the tomato juice would be phenomenal in that, so I would highly recommend not getting rid of this tomato juice, and keeping it. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to blend this for a little bit. Since I have the food processor backwards, I had the lid on, or the bowl locked backwards. Okay, now we're just going to pulse it. Perfect, so remember, turn your scale on, zero it out, and then here's what my tomatoes look like. I'm just going to dump those in. Okay. And we're going to repeat until we have all the tomatoes in. Okay, so here you can see we got it right at 8 pounds. So that's perfect. We are quadrupling the recipe. And then I did have a little bit left, but I'm just gonna put this in a jar and keep it in the refrigerator. And now I have diced tomatoes, and I'm gonna make chili this week, so that will work out perfectly. All right, next we're gonna get the rest of the peppers and onions and cilantro chopped up. All right, so for every 2 pounds of tomatoes, you're gonna add in 1 medium onion finely diced. So I'm gonna just roughly chop this, and then I'm going to throw it in the food processor just so everything's pretty even and small in size. I'm going to grab a scraps bowl. So I'm just going to really roughly quickly chop it. So Again, we're gonna do 4 medium onions. And if you don't have a food processor or you prefer hand chopping, I know it's very therapeutic to some people, that's totally fine. You just do whatever works best for you. All right, and then we are supposed to do 2 cloves of minced garlic per batch. So I'm gonna do 8 cloves of minced garlic, and I'm just gonna throw it all in here. I will roughly chop this just a little bit, but here is some of the garlic. Look at how huge this garlic head is. I think I might count those too. Although we love garlic, so I might just count it as 1. Okay, 1. 8. Okay, throw the lid on. Get that all chopped up. Looks like that. It's just red because I didn't clean the food processor. It still had the tomatoes in there. All right, next thing we need to add in is our jalapenos. So I already sliced these. I didn't realize I needed them whole. So what we're gonna do is, I did a quick Google and it said that 1 jalapeno is equivalent to about 1 tablespoon of diced jalapenos. So I am going to, oops, that's on backwards. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna quickly dice these up. Don't really want to plug it with my hand because it's so spicy. And I'm just gonna get a tablespoon out and we are going to throw in 2 tablespoons per batch. So 8 tablespoons of jalapenos. All right, so we have our jalapenos here. I did throw a glove on just to be extra safe. I do not mess around with jalapenos, and I'm gonna do 1 tablespoon per jalapeno pepper. So I need 8 in total. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Perfect, and then I have this much left. I'm just gonna save these in another container. All right, then we want 60 milliliters of cilantro per batch. Just put the container on, zeroed it out. Just gonna pat this dry just a little bit more. I washed my cilantro. And then we want to cut it very small. Okay. We're gonna weigh out 60. Wow. That right there is 60. I like eyeballed that perfectly. Okay, so I'm gonna repeat this 3 more times. And I'm curious, are you a team cilantro or a team no cilantro? I guess some people hate it and think it tastes like soap. There's an enzyme in it that makes it taste like soap to some people. I used to hate cilantro and now I love it. So I'll just think it's funny how our taste buds change as we get older. All right, then we're gonna add 1 teaspoon of salt for every batch, so I'm doing 4 teaspoons of salt. Remember, we're using pickling salt. If you use iodine salt, that will make your canned goods change color over time, which is not what we want. And then 1/2 teaspoon of black pepper per batch, so 2 teaspoons of black pepper for me. Cool. All right, next thing I'm gonna do is just get our lime juice going for each recipe. So for every 2 pounds of tomatoes, we need 1/2 cup of lime juice. And the lime juice is what makes this recipe safe. So normally you would use like vinegar. This one we're using lime juice. And it is important to note, you wanna make sure you're paying attention to your recipe. You would never substitute like vinegar for lime juice, especially fresh lime juice. If the recipe calls for vinegar, make sure you are actually using vinegar, but this recipe calls for fresh lime juice, which I thought was awesome. So I'm just gonna go ahead and get our limes prepped. What I like to do is roll them. I find that that kind of helps release a lot more of the juices, and then I'll cut them in half and squeeze. If you don't have one of these hand juicers, I will highly recommend one. I think they just pay for themselves because you get so much more juice out of each of the limes. You're not wasting any. So I'm gonna do 1/2 cup of lime juice per every 2 pounds of tomatoes. So we'll see how much lime juice I actually have. We are gonna add in our fresh lime juice, 1/2 cup per batch. Because I did 4, I'm gonna do 2 cups of fresh lime juice. And then we'll give that a good stir. All right, then we're going to go get this on the stove and bring it up to a boil. So let's go move this on over there. So at this point in the evening, Sam had just gotten home from taking his little cousin out elk hunting. Unfortunately, they didn't get one, but we were just kind of chatting and catching up. So all you're going to do is put your mixture on the stove. You're going to let it come to a rolling boil, and then once it's at the rolling boil, reduce the heat down to a simmer, set the timer for 5 minutes, and then once the 5 minutes is up, you're just going to remove it from the heat. And while our salsa was coming to a boil, I was getting the jars all sterilized, so they're just in that big black pot on the stove. So you can see here, I just go ahead and take them out one by one from the boiling water. Do be really careful when you do this. The jars and the water are extremely hot. And then all I'm going to do is just fill them up. When you're doing this, you want to fill the jars all the way, remove any foam from the jars or from the top of the salsa, and then you want a 1/2 inch of headspace remaining in the salsa. And you can see I am just running this along the outside edge of each of my jars. What this does is removes the air bubbles from all of the jars. You want to run it around about 2 or 3 times per jar, and then definitely go back through and check your headspace. When you remove air bubbles, this can change the headspace, so just make sure you are still at that 1/2 inch, which you can see I am doing here. Then I'm just taking a rag with a little bit of white vinegar on it and running that around the outsides. We want to make sure that if I accidentally spilled anything, I'm getting that off of the rim of the jar, because if we leave it, that will prevent it from sealing properly. And then I did go ahead and heat the lids and the rings up in just a little bit of warm water. That just helps loosen that rubber seal around the lid. and I'm just gonna put those on top because the water is so hot. I am using this magnetic ring holder, and then I'm just going to go ahead and put each ring on the lid or on the jar and make sure that you are just tightening it down to fingertip tightness. And then I just go ahead and get the jars put into the water bath. I do put mine in a star pattern. That just helps these little shelf from flipping over or moving around with the jars in there. It keeps the weight evenly distributed. So I'm just gonna go ahead and put that down in the water. Once it comes up to a full boil, I'm going to set the timer for 25 minutes because I am at high altitude. But if you're at low altitude, you will do it for 15 minutes. Definitely make sure that you are checking your times with your local altitude. All right, friends, look at how good that looks. This is all done. These have sat for 24 hours, hence the outfit change. So I am going to go ahead and take the rings. Okay, good. I all sealed, I never even checked. I'm gonna take the rings off of our jars. Remember, we never store our jars with our rings on. We don't want any moisture locked in there. And especially with tomato products, if this has a false seal or something is going wrong inside, we want this lid to pop. So we don't want to keep it on with the ring. So remember, never store them in there. Let's pull this over. Never store them with their rings on. So I am going to load up this box, and then we can take this down to the food storage room. I should mention we got 9 pints in total, so I am super excited about that. And then we did get one other Tupperware full that I have just been eating with some tortilla chips, and oh my gosh, it is so good. So let's get these carried downstairs and put away on our shelves. Okay, and welcome to my food preservation room. This is a room I have never shown you guys before, but I thought it'd be fun to get these put up on the shelves together. So I'm gonna get these put away, but I just wanna thank you all so much for stopping by and taking the time out of your day to come hang out with me. I really appreciate it and hope that you had fun today. I look forward to seeing you guys in the next one. If you haven't already, please make sure you subscribe, and we'll catch you later. Bye, friend.